Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I don't know what time of day it is that you're going to be watching this, but my name is Andrea and I'm beaming live from my office here in Vancouver, BC, Canada. And now my office is known as the Glass Palace because it has floor to ceiling windows and we're in the middle of an extreme heat wave right now. So I apologize in advance for the tank top, but it's the only way I'm going to be able to get through this presentation without melting. And I will have to, on that note, take a drink of water because it's already 40 degrees in here. But thank you very much for joining me in what I hope will be an insightful session on the magic of theme. And I love theme because as writers, whenever we decide to tell a story, it's because we have something that we want to say. And why we're telling stories is almost as important as the story itself. And I hope you're going to agree with me by the end of this presentation. What I'm going to be doing is walking you through some of the mechanics of theme and then discuss how I apply those mechanics to an award-winning novel. How exciting is that? So before I get into my bio, I just want to give a quick shout out to the International Dublin Writers Festival. Thank you so much for having me. This is my second year in a row presenting. Last year, I did this very lively discussion on adaptation. Sort of 5 considerations for writers if they're thinking of developing their own novel or someone else's work into a television series. And that presentation was fun because it combined my skill sets of TV production and writing. And the administrators of the festival wanted me to do a follow-up to that presentation. And after last year's festival, my second novel, A Rainbow Like You, was released a few weeks later, end of October, and it turned out to be a bit of a game changer for me. And it has inspired my topic today of theme. So I hope you guys have a great time at the festival. All the best with your writing journey. And before I move into my key points here, a little quick and dirty on me. My name is Andréa Fehsenfeld. And yes, I constantly have to spell my last name. It's a giant pain. I think I'm going to transcend and just become a one-word name like Madonna or Cher. It's just going to make my life so much easier. But yes, I love leather. I love spray paint. I'm a bit of a wild child, but I'm also an award-winning novelist. I've published 2 novels to date. I'm working on number 3 and number 4. I'm launching a romance brand in 2022 under a different author name. And when I'm not writing, I'm an award-winning TV producer, and I've delivered over 200 commercials, series, and films for Fortune 500 companies, global networks, and the world's biggest brands. So I love both of my careers, and I do speaking on both the topics of film and TV and writing, which is why that whole adaptation session last year was so much fun. Well, there you have a little bit about me. So let's just get right into it in terms of theme. So theme, what is theme and why is it important? Well, what is theme? Theme is a universal message. And anytime us writers are about to start writing a story, it's because we want to tell the world something. And on the flip side, when a reader picks up the book, they're not necessarily thinking about the theme, but they're looking forward to like, well, what's the author going to try and teach me in this story? So theme is really important. And theme, because there's these universal messages, you don't have to recreate the wheel and coming up with one. There's a lot of standard ones that you can choose from, like good versus evil, coming of age, love conquers all. And if you think of your favorite books or film or TV shows, all 3 of those will kind of fit neatly into some sort of universal theme that's already been imagined. So all you have to do is try and pick one that is going to make sense for your story and your character. And I'll talk a little bit about how you do that in a bit. But the concept of theme, I find, is sometimes a bit elusive and amorphous for writers, and it's often confused with plot. And because I love a great analogy, I'm going to give you an analogy here so you can understand the difference between plot and theme. So if you think that your book is your body, what's holding up your body or your story is a skeleton. The skeleton is the framework. It's the plot of your story, because your plot is kind of holding up everything that's going on, and everything is draped along the plot, the skeleton of your story. But underneath that skeleton is a heart, and that heart is pumping life and energy and meaning into the skeleton. So if plot is how your character is moving through the journey, how your character is going through the framework, theme is why they're going on the journey. And a reader might pick up your book because they're interested in the plot. But if you render theme properly, that's what's going to linger in someone's heart, because that's what theme is. It's the heart of the story. So picking an appropriate one is critical. And one of the things you have to realize about theme is it's not just, okay, I pick a theme, I'll somehow deal with it, and that's that. No, 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 no. Theme saturates every part of your story, from the opening line to the book blurb, to the pacing, to the dialogue. Theme will also impact how you market your book. And I know marketing can be a four-letter word for a lot of authors out there, but it's critical that you understand how you're going to position your book in the marketplace, and theme can help you do that. So now that we know what theme is and why it's important, the next consideration that we want to have is, well, how do we go about picking a theme? Well, my advice to you is cherry pick the best theme for your character's journey and the story. But how do you know what's right for the story? How do you know what's right for the character? Well, as theme relates to character, a lot of the stuff you will net out in your pre-planning and first draft stage. And this is where you're wrapping your head around things and asking questions such as, what kind of person is this character? What are they struggling with? And what are the quirks or the shades in their personality that's going to make this journey hard? And now my personal process is, before I even map out the entire story, is I spend a week or so, and I type out a few chapters just so I can get under the skin of the protagonist. Because we all know as writers that characters come alive on the page. So for me, I have to at least understand the voice and just kind of get a sense of how they're moving through the world, because that way they also tell me things about themselves that I already didn't know. And that's going to help me either confirm the theme that I chose, or maybe I'm going to have to sort of adjust it slightly based on what the protagonist is telling me. Now, so you picked a theme for your character, but how do you know you've picked the right theme for your story? Well, the question to ask is, what kind of story are you telling? And I'm going to use a romance novel as an example here because it's very clear cut. In that, if you're writing a romance novel, you're probably not going to choose the theme of revenge, because romance readers don't expect people to die at the end of the story or have someone killed. They're all expecting a happily ever after. So you probably want to choose a theme like perseverance or coming of age, something that can be explored on a bit more of a positive note. On the flip side, if you're writing an action or a thriller novel, you're probably not going to use the theme of love, because love in those stories is often tertiary if explored at all. And I bring this up because if you are writing in genre in particular, reader expectations are ferocious, and you can get skewered out there as an author if you don't follow those expectations. So picking theme is very, very critical. Excuse me while I take a sip of water. So now that you've chosen your theme, you kind of understand a little bit about the journey and the story, the next thing you want to do is decide what side of the theme your character is on at the start of the story. In other words, what is their worldview and why, and will it change, and how will it change? So again, going back to a romance novel here, let's say your character is incredibly selfish, and as a result, they're divorced, they're not having any success in their dating world, but they're kind of blind to the fact that they're selfish. And then what happens is that they're going to get introduced to their love interest, and it's through the interaction with this love interest that the light bulb is going to go off. It's like, oh, maybe it's not just them. Maybe it is me that has to change. And that's kind of the fun part of the journey, is how characters go from one side of the theme to the other side of the theme. And characters have to change, because if you don't, then you don't really have a story. I mean, that's why we're looking for a bookend to how a character is at the beginning to how a character is at the end. And if you can weave the theme into that, gently, of course, because theme is never like, you don't hammer people over the head with it, that's what's going to make for a very rich experience for the reader. So picking the side of the theme that your character starts with was important, because it also will dictate to you then how they're going to change in the story, which is going to be the meat of what you're writing. So the next concept you want to think about with theme is trickle down. So here's my little pyramid diagram, because of course, every story has a protagonist, a main person that is going through some sort of struggle or journey. But you can also make the story that much richer if you can take the major theme of your story and have it trickle down into like the different layers of the B and C storylines, the B and C characters. And if you can have it impact those other characters, not that they will necessarily be going as the same journey as your main character, they shouldn't, but if they're going on sort of complementary journeys, but not identical, then you'll see how it all meshes together. And trickle down also impacts all the efforts that you make in your marketing. And I'm going to give you some really specific examples when I get to my book, A Rainbow Like You. But again, you don't want to discount marketing, because writing the story is one thing, but ultimately as an author, to have success is you have to be able to sell your book. So marketing is very, very critical. So if you can have your thematic elements play out throughout the story into different layers with characters, and also in the marketing, you kind of hit the golden jackpot. So picking a theme, picking the side of the theme, having theme trickle down into the story, that all sounds great. How does this come together in a book? Well, theme at work. So I'm going to be talking about my award-winning novel, A Rainbow Like You. And I'll start by telling you just sort of the gist of the story. And the gist of the story surrounds this very famous rock and roller named Adrian Jazzer Johnson. And at the start of the story, he's been in exile for the last year, and he's now back and he's on a world tour with his band. So the story opens in Scottsdale, Arizona. He's in the parking lot of a hotel in his tour bus, and he's at a crossroads. He's struggling professionally, he's struggling personally, and he's also under pressure to deliver the next hit for his band. So what he doesn't expect is to find this teen runaway, Hastings, who's the African-American girl, hiding in his tour bus. And now one of the elements that I used in this story is a bit of a Hollywood hook, is the fact that Adrian has this rare form of color blindness called tritanopia. And Hastings has this condition called synesthesia, which allows her to see music in color. So their journey kind of starts together by her offering to kind of help him unpack his creative block, but it puts them on this very unexpected path instead. And you can see by the name of the title, A Rainbow Like You, color obviously plays a big part in this work. You can see it's a very vibrant color, a very bright color, and I've had a lot of great feedback on it, which again is why you want to spend money on a good designer. But that's the gist of the story. So what actually happened with this novel? Well, 7 months after it got published, here's some of the highlights. It won a US Fiction Prize through the Independent Publisher Awards. It was shortlisted for a Fiction Grand Prize through the Writers Guild of Canada Awards, and it was named a Best Book of 2020 by journalist, award-winning author, and CBC personality Grant Lawrence. And I'm proud of all these accolades, but I want to do a little bit of a sidebar commentary on the last one. I was exceptionally proud of being on this list because A Rainbow Like You was the only self-published book amongst a whole crop of traditionally published books. And that is really important because, as anyone who's a self-published author knows, it's tough out there. 4,000 books a day are released. So how do you, as an author, cut through all that noise? So the big tip that I want to leave you with is, when you're spending money on bringing your book to market, make sure you hire a professional editor and make sure you hire a professional cover designer, because those two things are going to make or break you as an author. Because we've all looked at self-published covers and we know that those things look homemade. They don't look great. They don't look professional. And if you want to be judged on the same level as your traditionally published counterparts, you need to step up to the plate and deliver a product that is as good as theirs. So think about your work as an extension of you. If you're going out there for a job interview, you want to put your best foot forward. It's the same thing if you're offering creative work to the public. You want to make sure it's the best you can possibly be. So that's my little rant on self-publishing. Sorry, sidebar. So A Rainbow Like You. So let's talk about how I took all these mechanics of theme and worked them into the story. So the theme that I chose the theme of redemption. And I chose this theme partly through my process when I was doing the opening chapters writing Adrian. It became very apparent to me what sort of the struggles and issues that he was going through. And it made sense for the type of story that I wanted to tell, just based on what was going to be going on in the plot. And now, so redemption worked for both the character and the story. And I want to also just play to you the book trailer here, because I've talked already now about how themes should also trickle down into your marketing. And I'm going to play this for you, and then I'll jump back in afterwards and just tell you a little bit about how I managed to massage theme into the trailer. So starting. Great. So that's the trailer for the book. So a few things that I want to bring to your attention. So think of the language that you saw in some of those slides. Rock star with everything to prove, a runaway with nothing left to lose, hope, healing, facing the music in a way you never have before. What do all those things harken back to? They harken back to the theme of redemption. So there's all these cues to the reader like, oh, this is going to be probably a story with some meat on its bones. It's not just some wild and crazy comedy. But also think about the music that you heard in this trailer. The song, which is an original song that I wrote and released as a companion piece to the book. The song is in A minor, and minor key songs are poignant songs. They're heartfelt songs. They're songs usually with some sadness and sorrow and bittersweetness to them. And again, that relates back to the theme of redemption. Because imagine if you're watching this video and overlaid on the audio would be this high energy, super poppy pop song. It wouldn't make sense. It would be very incongruent to someone who's watching this. So this is what I mean, where you have your theme trickle down into all your marketing elements, the language that you use to market it, the imagery that you use, any kind of corresponding music or audio that you have. I don't necessarily recommend you write an original song for your book. It worked for this story, but it was a hell of a lot of work. But anyway, just to give you an idea of how that all kind of comes together. So the theme I chose was redemption. So moving forward, sorry. So picking a side and the trickle down of theme. So the character of Adrian. So what side of the theme was Adrian on for redemption? Well, he was forced to kind of reconcile his regrets and ambitions, and he does this through the help of the teen runaway Hastings. But I knew very much that when I started writing Adrian, that he was the kind of person, based on his personality and his backstory, etc., he knew things had to change, but he just couldn't get into the mindset to foster that change. He needed the help of someone, a foil like Hastings. So he was clearly on one side, but I knew ultimately where he needed to end up. So I trickled down the theme of redemption by creating a pretty fantastic backstory and journey for Hastings as well. I mean, she's on this tour bus for a reason, and she's kind of overcoming her own personal demons. And although her story was kind of teased out throughout the book, and there were some great twists, 2/3 of the way through, the fact that they were having these sort of complementary redemptive journeys and were able to help each other really made for a great reader experience. I mean, that's why my book got a lot of critical and fan acclaim. So if you're able to kind of tie, this is a great example of how theme trickles down into other characters in your story. And I talked a little, one of the things I think that's important for an author is after your book's been out for a while, you want to do some forensics on it in terms of, well, why did people react this way? What did people react to? And across the board, people love the character of Hastings because she was a bit of this magical character. And as you can imagine, Adrian is this 30-year-old successful rock star. He's a bit of a larger than life personality, kind of surrounded by yes men. And that's one of the reasons why he's not able to kind of affect his change, because there's like no one is sort of calling him on his shit, quote unquote. So Hastings, who has no history with Adrian and has this great bluntness of youth, she kind of can look at Adrian and his situation and call it as she sees it, which, as it turns out, is exactly what Adrian needs. So that's why that kind of a character like Hastings really kind of works in this story and why people really glommed onto her. And when I was writing her voice, she came to me as this sort of like old sensitive soul, which again made sense for the redemptive theme. Because if she was one of these sort of Hollywood precocious know-it-all types, Miss Sassy Pants with all the smart answers, that would have been a completely different tone to the story and it wouldn't have worked. So again, these are all little small ways that you can use theme and sort of saturate theme into your story. And again, readers are not necessarily conscious of this when they're reading it, but believe me, they pick up on it. It kind of infuses and infects the entire story. So, in summary then, the magic of theme. Number one, when you are picking a theme, think about your character's journey, think about the story you're writing, and come to the conclusion of what kind of a theme is going to make sense. And once you decide what that theme is, then decide what side of the theme your character aligns with, because that's going to dictate the change that's going to have to happen to them. And then lastly, if you can have theme trickle down and impact on multiple levels, not only in the story, but in your marketing, it's just going to plant a flag in the reader's mind in terms of what they can expect from your story. And if you deliver on that, then you kind of hit, again, the Las Vegas jackpot. So I hope that's been helpful for you. If you're now curious about A Rainbow Like You, and I know you are, you can find it on all the online retailers, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Google, iBooks. If you are in Canada, you can order it through Indigo Chapters. The audiobook is coming soon. I'm just looking for a narrator right now. And if you want to hear the song A Rainbow Like You, and I know you do, you can stream it on Spotify, Apple Music, and Pandora. So again, thank you very much. If you have any further questions on this or just want to toss any ideas my way, by all means, let's connect. You can find me through my website, Fehsenfeld.com, or you can find me on social media. My handle is the same across all platforms, ACF Creative. And this is a photo of me in front of my nerdy index card board when I was mapping out the story of A Rainbow Like You. And I highly recommend this to all writers, that you take little mementos as you go through each of your story's journeys, because it's nice to reflect back on at the end of the day. So thank you all for sharing your time with me. I hope this has been helpful. A great meeting you. Again, my name is Andrea. Have a good one, and we will see you soon.